Namaste. I would like to talk very briefly about the role of yoga in health and disease in today's ever-changing, fast-paced world. Why is it that so much of emphasis and focus is being given to yoga today? It is because yoga has a very profound effect on both body and mind and whatever entities, whether we believe or not, are related to these. And a very basic concept of how yoga does this has been taken from the Yoga Vasishta, and this is the concept of Aadhi and Vyadhi. Aadhi is an internal, or that which comes from the manas or the mind. The difficulty of the mind or some agitations of the mind is known as Aadhi, and Vyadhi is when it somaticizes. Vividam dukkham adadati Vyadhi, that which gives many causes for sorrow or many sorrows is known as Vyadhi. And how then does yoga help in these? Today, as we see, many of the diseases that we deal with are non-communicable, and we are dealing with them as psychosomatic disorders. And the psycho part is the Aadhi part and Vyadhi, and the somatic is Vyadhi. And in yoga, when we are talking of Ashtanga yoga, Pranayama, or the exercise of the breath, this prana is the one which is the bridge between the manas, where the Aadhi lies, and the body, or the soma, where the Vyadhi manifests. And how this happens is being likened to a deer which is drinking water, and then it gets suddenly shot by an arrow. And this deer then leaves its normal path and goes away, it strays away helter-skelter. And this is what happens to our mind when it's not on a proper, mediated, functioning level. And then when this happens with the mind, just as the breath gets stuck here and there and doesn't move properly and affects normal functioning, in the same way the mind too, when it's running helter-skelter and is not focused, it gets stuck, and this eventually, slowly leads to manifestation in the body. And this is where, because we can't really control the mind, not so easily anyway, this is where pranayama and the breath come in. The breath is a bridge between the body and the mind. And this is how and prana, the word prana comes from the dhatu or the root pr, which means jivana, to nourish. And ayama also means dairghyam, or length, or breadth, or to stretch it a bit. And so by controlling, by being, not really controlling, but being mindful of the breath, watching the breath, one can watch the mind in its subtlest aspect. And Aadhi is supposed to have been, when we start thinking of something, when we start kind of cogitating on some thoughts, if they are good, well and good. If they are not, then this leads to various anxieties, various desires when not fulfilled, leads to anger, leads to frustration. When they are fulfilled, they lead to further wanting other things, dissatisfaction with what we already have. And this, the cycle goes on. And when it goes on, from the mind, it comes to the breath. Through the breath, it comes into the body. When one is angry, observe the breath. You see what's happening in the breath. Try to calm it down. This is why the age-old saying of count until 10 when you're angry. You count, you watch your breath, and then you see yourself calming down, you feel yourself calming down. This is how the breath can control the body and the mind. Slow down the breath, you slow down the mind, and you also slow down the body. And when you control this, you control the mind, you slowly feel the easing up of symptoms in your body. And the last phase of this is when the last phase, when it appears in the body, is when the mind, the last state of this mental agitation, it's like further gone, and that's when it settles into the body. And so this deep-rooted thing, we can, yes, immediately treat from the body, we treat through asanas, we treat through pranayama, and then before we go to the mind level, that's why these stages of the Ashtanga Yoga are given. We purify ourselves through yama and niyama in our interactions with the outside world and with ourselves, and then we do asanas, we ready our body, we purify the body, then pranayama, and then we go on to the mental planes. And this is how we take Ashtanga Yoga and yoga with us. Thank you for everything. Good for the universe and for ourselves. Thank you.